Hello and welcome to this episode of the Dead Man Walking podcast. I'm your host, repeatedly dead Fred, author of the medical trauma memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is what actually happened to me, and that's how I got this ridiculous name. Today, I'm here with one of the Canadian icons of comedy and acting and entertaining. I would go so far as to say you are the Martin Short of the female Canadians. I put you
Oh,
in that class.
come on. Well, that's the best thing anyone's ever said to me because I absolutely adore Martin Short. I love his whole return of Jiminy Glick. I'm nowhere
Mhm.
near that, but I'll take it because I'm not bogged down by facts. So, sure.
As you've told me about after telling you I read your Wikipedia and like how that is just like so off the mark. So
Yes, yeah. It's very rarely accurate what's on Wiki. It's not a
okay,
trusted source.
okay. So I guess one of the standard questions is where does your funny come from? Like, was there somebody in your family that was generally really funny?
I
And you
think everybody in my family is generally a lot funnier than me, but
Mhm.
yeah, I had a family who loved humor. My mom and dad, well, I know this all sounds like, things that would be canceled now, but
Mhm.
my younger brother and I heard comedy album after comedy album, whether it
Mhm.
be Bob Newhart, probably most inappropriately, Cheech and Chong, which was played
Yeah.
repeatedly. And my mom and dad took us to all the Mel Brooks movies at the
Mhm.
time when we were far too young to understand all the jokes, but nevertheless loved it. Since I was a kid and still am, I still sometimes watch on Saturday early evenings, The Three Stooges.
Mhm.
My favorite stooge being Shemp, the thinking woman stooge. So the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby road movies, like all of this is when I was 3. So
Mhm.
I think it got in there very early. And as I mentioned, everybody in my family, there was a lot of laughter around the dinner table.
Mhm.
I always joke that my younger brother is much funnier. He's a teacher, so I just steal a lot of his stuff. So that was a big part of it. And even in grade 6, I won a speech competition. I think it was like Kiwanis or Rotary, one of those. And my speech was all about humor, everything from, again, Oscar Wilde to Carol Burnett. So just always been a big part. I mean, at least I don't know. I haven't always done comedy. I came to it a little bit later because I did a lot of radio and TV, but I've always had
Mhm.
it's always been my first love.
So what was your first actual entertainment job?
My first actual entertainment job was working for the Weather Network, I believe. Well, that's a hard one to answer. One is I took my third year of university in France
Mhm.
and a medieval town called Besançon. I was just actually talking to this with Jeff Lumby, a former radio guy who now lives in France yesterday. And I went to Besançon for my third year and ended up working at a radio station there.
Mhm.
So that was my introduction to radio. And then I guess my first TV job was Canada's Weather Network. So,
That's amazing.
well, I think it was at the time. I always joke that I was a weather girl. I was a flight attendant for Air Canada for a summer. So if I had been a nurse, I would have covered all of the original, the OG slutty Halloween costumes.
Hilarious. And you could probably still pull them off. So
I like to think so. What do you? I like to try to stay as timeless as I can.
so how did you end up transitioning from all that into comedy? Like
Going
to
into
do the
comedy.
stand up? Yeah.
Well, I started comedy really young and didn't last long. I started in Montreal when I was on the Weather Network, but I didn't have a thick enough skin for it. And
Mhm.
I made it to Just for Laughs, and you know, it's a harsh business. So
For sure.
it was male dominated, still kind of is, I suppose. Not that that makes a difference. Some of my best friends are men, but I had a really difficult. It was just I just was too sensitive. I'm a sensitive little butterfly, And
Mhm.
at the time I was working in radio TV, and I thought, I don't need this kind of, I had such a huge nerve issue with it too. Like I couldn't
Mhm.
eat for days leading up to a show. I mean, now I would get up and do, 45 minutes at a garage sale. I don't care. But back then I had a very big nerve issue, and I thought, I don't need this nonsense because, it's not very glamorous.
Mhm.
And
And the
crazy
pay isn't
hours.
great.
No, it certainly, got to work your way up. So I abandoned it in my early 20s, and I went back about, I don't know, 12 or more years ago, because I do love comedy. You do have total agency over all of your stuff. You can be
Mm.
writer, director, producer. Uh, you're not reading somebody else's work. And when I was older, I just didn't care what other people thought. And I think we all on our journeys make our way back to what we love. Like you
Mhm.
can try to run away from it, but then you eventually boomerang back.
Yeah. I remember I talked to Mark Breslin 4, 5, 6 months ago, and we talked about people like Norm Macdonald. I don't know if you've worked with Norm.
Oh,
Um,
everybody, I worship. Absolutely. Norm MacDonald is one of my favorites. There was no one like Norm.
yeah, and he was saying like when you get a position like Weekend Update, it's all you. I mean, he might have had a couple of booster writers, but you like you were just saying, you're the actor, you're the producer, you're the writer, you're the director, and it just allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do.
Well, I think also Norm's the kind of, I mean, he's just a comedy god, and he has such a distinct voice. You
Mhm.
know, when you're listening to a Norm Macdonald, I mean, he's really, I think a lot of people consider him the GOAT. I'm certainly one of them. So, you know that it's Norm writing Norm stuff. It's just a very clear, distinct voice.
Mhm. And he, like you, a very, very intelligent person. So, he was apparently also a math kind of genius.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had to be. Listen, he was a different. I think that's why I adored him. I have a funny spiritual thing that has to do with Norm Macdonald, which I may or may not reveal on your podcast, but because I never met Norm in person,
Mhm.
I always was a great admirer, and and yeah, he was so unbelievably. I mean, his intelligence was just superior,
Mhm.
and his philosophies. Yeah, he's like a unicorn. I mean, there are a lot of great comedians, but Norm is in a whole other sphere.
Seems that way. Um, Now, what you had some breakthrough performances because of COVID. You started an entire new route in your career. So, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I actually started something just before COVID hit. Just
Mhm.
I think it was October of 2019. Um, where it was more of a fluke, but I combined two of my greatest loves, which are comedy and, for lack of a better, I'll say spirituality, but a lot of times people, you go, what? Or wellness.
Mhm.
So I've been a yogi for a long time. And my parents, speaking to my parents, they practiced transcendental meditation way back in the day. So I very big on meditating. And again, meditating is just breathing and, calming your
Mhm.
mind. But I also live in Los Angeles where everyone's a guru. And I think what happened is they commandeered the whole self help space. And I, I feel like they make it a bit elite and people get intimidated. They don't want to go to the classes. So I came up with something called Chuckle and Chill that starts with maybe 30 minutes of stand up, and then I go into an authentic, original guided meditation. And at first, it sounds like it's a bizarre marriage. And believe me,
Mhm.
I got pushed back on, are you going to make fun of it? And, like I was inviting the Bloods and Crips over for, brunch at Gwyneth Paltrow's like, what? And whereas for me, I think laughter and wellness are absolute neighbors. Like that's
Mhm.
a great Hollywood marriage. So interestingly enough, there's some science behind it because laughter and meditation it's the same brainwave. It's a gamma state. So what I found was when I started to do these out in the wild is that people will get a good laugh, you release endorphins, a little bit of energy, and you just get out of your own head, which is basically all mindfulness is getting the ego, or, you know, the little toddler that's always, we got to go get groceries and pick up the kids. And so it just gets that out of the way. And people were going into a very deep meditation, or they heard about my life and just felt exponentially better about theirs after they heard my stand-up, one way or the other. So I kind of moved that, and it actually transitioned very well when we were on lockdown and the Jean-Claude Van Damme. It worked well on Zoom, like what we're doing now, because a lot of times people, you know, they don't want to drool, or they sort of liked being in their own place. And when I would do them at a wellness center here, everyone said, God, I just wish I could just roll over and sleep afterwards. So when I do these on Zoom, people can just roll over and go to sleep afterwards. So it's one of those things where it's a bit experiential. Once people try it, they're hooked. But at first they're just, well, I don't want to be laughing my ass off and then have to. I said, well, just give it a whirl, girl. So then I expanded. I have like affirmations, because, you know, we tend to do all these affirmations and mantras, but we just do them by rote, like a bunch of little robots, and it's not punching through to the subconscious. But if you say something that I'm so rich, I'm wearing Fruit of the Illuminati underwear, you kind of make yourself giggle and it gets through that barrier. And then most recently, I've been doing vision pop boards, which I had not done art since high school. Still have my high school art teacher who were Facebook friends. And I started doing it for a couple of friends, where I would draw the person and then what they wanted to manifest. And I kind of have a pop art style. So now I'm doing the vision boards too, which I really love. That's good therapy for me. Yeah, so that's sort of my little hybrid brand, is the laugh of attraction.
So do you sell those little pop art things?
I do.
Awesome.
I know. I had like I'll just ask people to send me like a couple of pictures they like. Like if I did one for you, I would say, send me a couple of pictures of yourself that you like, so I can work off of the one. And then I sort of draw you in the center of it. And then you also list things that you love or you want to manifest. And then I use a lot of different symbols, and, you know, you put money and health, and yeah, they're kind of groovy.
So when I was writing my book, I was living with an artist, and she tried to get me to expand my art horizons and start drawing things so that I have characters for the book and stuff. And I quickly realized I draw like a 3-year-old.
Well, you know, there's a lot of different styles. See, my brother teaches art history in New Zealand, and he was the one who kept encouraging me, because every style is a style. I mean, you know, Keith Haring's also very simple, and mine is a bit of a cartoon. And he said, I think you have a really unique style. Just work into it. And then he said, and if you make a mistake, it's a happy accident. You know, you go the Jackson Pollock route. So, I mean, that you could illustrate children's books. You know, I mean, a lot of times some of the styles I like the best are very simple.
So what else are you working on now?
Well, I just finished, I feel like I shouldn't even be out in the wild, because I literally just handed it in last week, and I was adapting a novel into a screenplay, and which is the first time I've done that, written a screenplay out of a novel. So I was very much sequestered, like a little weird mole hermit person. It's a solitary kind of work, but it's actually a Canadian. He was a boss of mine on one of the radio stations. And Paul Fisher wrote a book about near-death experience. And I don't know how I think we're connected on Facebook, but he had sent me a copy of the book, and it was described as a metaphysical love story. And I thought, well, this is interesting. Kind of my, you know, it's in my bang house. So I read it, and we were talking, and I said, I think I could adapt this. I changed it quite a bit because, very different a movie. It's, can't all be in the author's head. And I said, I also think it needs some comedy. I said, I'm not suggesting I turn it into a comedy completely, but I think with topics such as this one, because it's very, it's heavy and it's near death and death that you need, again, that's, as you can tell, that's my personal philosophy, that humor makes it a lot more digestible. So
Sure.
his book is called Like a River to the Sea, and I renamed it Near Life Experience for the screenplay. And so that was a whole little odyssey because it was to keep the, to be mindful and respectful of the author's voice, but turn it into a more visual, dialogue driven medium. So that was really interesting and exciting.
So what happens to that now? Does it go up to like a bidding process, or is there somebody that's ready to take it?
I'm not sure about ready to take it. It's a pretty crazy landscape right now. It's not like it was a few years ago. It's very difficult, but yeah, he'll take it. I've sent it to a few of my contacts here, but I know there's a big appetite. I mean, as you can probably tell, with podcasts and television shows, which is why I also gave it some humor, that there's a whole category now. What did I watch? I rewatched Heaven Can Wait and Defending Your Life. Well, The Sixth Sense, not that that's a comedy, last Christmas, but I think, because we're living in these apocalypse adjacent times, I feel, as I'm sure you've seen with podcasts, like podcasts about near-death experience and having a wellness or spiritual nature, have grown, and the numbers have multiplied like crazy, because I think everybody's looking for something uplifting, answers to why we're here, something other than the little matrix that we're in right now with crazy politicians and pandemics and an economy shakier than a chihuahua on meth. I said, whenever you're living in times where Cat Williams is the voice of reason, the days are crazy.
Did you just say a chihuahua on meth?
Yes.
That's hilarious. That could be a great book title.
It would be. I'll use that that should be my autobiography. I'm a little bit like a chihuahua on meth. And actually, I wrote a children's book because, speaking of that, my chihuahua passed away. So I wrote what I call a children's book, but it's really just, it's an inspirational book for adults called The Wawa Way. And I'm in the midst of illustrating that. So, yeah, and that's just kind of living your life the way dogs do, because they've got it going on. Dogs know right away to just live in the moment and love unconditionally. But of course, I've always thought animals were superior to humans. So,
did you have a lot of pets growing up?
Growing up, and this is the first time that just because I'm going to be doing some traveling, but I'll be rescuing again. I've always had animals, and at the farm where I was in the pandemic, I even crossed over, and now I have 4 or 5 cats at that farm. But yeah, I'm a big, always been a dog person. I felt with cats, I got enough rejection in LA, so I'm like, I don't need the attitude of cats. But a mother abandoned her kittens. I ended up nursing a few back to life, and now, and I just raised them as dogs. Yeah, there were horses, I had chickens living in my bathtub. Yeah, I'm all about the animals.
In your bathtub?
At the farm.
Where else are you going to put them?
Well, when they were chicks, when they were tiny. I mean, they eventually went back out to the barn. But yeah, at first when they were hatched, and then there was just a bunch living in my bathtub. I know, I was like an aging Disney princess. I had dogs and cats and chickens and a horse outside. I'm like, are you guys going to dress me in the morning? So yeah, love the animals and do a lot of work for animal organizations.
Have you ever watched the YouTube channel The Dodo?
Of course.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Because they
you should have one of those dates. You've
Oh,
seen some of the celebrities have dates with the animals. You should have
love that.
a dodo date.
I need a dodo date. Also, the dodo gets me because I'm a sucker for any kind of cross species. Like, when I see any kind of TikTok or video with a dog hanging out with a little baby piglet
Mm-hmm.
and a deer, I'm finished. I'm finished.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like just we would have world peace if animals were running things.
I think you're onto something there.
We can learn a lot from them.
Mm-hmm. But will we? Probably not.
Well, you always got to hold out hope
Mm-hmm.
that we're evolving. And I find like I always try to grab hope that every generation, as much as I love to make fun of Gen Zs, they're, for them it's very natural to be accepting and fluid and spiritual. Like that, younger people, no problem with comedy and meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So I hold out great hope that, as humans, we continue to evolve, and all the new generations are, star seeds, or all the jokes I make, or whatever kids that, are coming through. And I like to think we can learn no matter what age or no matter where you're from.
When I'm a guest on a podcast and they want me to talk about my story, they usually you leave us with some words of wisdom, and it's like, well, not my wisdom, but there was Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, psychiatrist, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and
Mm-hmm.
very summarized. He said, if you have hope, you can conquer almost anything.
Wise words. It's a good mantra because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you always have to have that. Why would we be going through this crazy video game if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have hope? And I will, I think, listen, it's very easy to become jaded, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very cool to be cynical, and I've never been cool, and I'll be continually shocked, and I'll think,
Mm-hmm.
well, at this stage I shouldn't be shocked if something goes south, but I like that I am.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we're all seeing the world through our own lens, so it depends how you want to see it. I think I posted something, and I got a lot of I think people were worried about me. I said, remember, the glass is always half full, even if it's filled with your own tears. And everybody was just, are you okay? And I said, it's just something my brother said that I thought was really clever.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to be philosophical, but did you have a near-death experience?
I've been clinically dead a few dozen times.
A few dozen?
So a few dozen. So
Why were you like
my book title is literal. Like my heart stopped and my breathing stopped for more than 30 seconds a few dozen times.
So it'd be interesting that because so many of people like yourselves who got a glimpse into the other
Mm-hmm.
have similar yet unique experiences. So
Mm-hmm.
is it like an ayahuasca trip? Did you see a dancing flower of life and
How did you
God?
know? That's exactly what I saw. No, you know what I saw? Nothing. I saw absolutely nothing.
Really?
Yeah,
So
at
you
least
didn't
that I
have,
can remember.
so no, so you don't have the ascended master or the light or any of the things that people purport to see?
No, and I like that you use the word purport because I think I am in no position to question what anybody else experienced or thinks they experienced. So just because it didn't happen for me, doesn't mean that I'm going to disbelieve that it happened for somebody else. All our brains are different. All our spirituality levels or religious levels are different. So I did have a few out of bodies, but I didn't have any come to the lights or anything like that.
Were
And
you
I
up
think
on the
if
ceiling looking back down at yourself?
I was a couple of times it was while I was in bed, but a couple of times I was out in public, and so I was like way above it. Yeah, I mean, once I was riding my bike in a park at probably 10 p.m. and I was just up there looking around, seeing the entirety of the park, and that nobody else was around, stuff like that. So it was quite amazing. It was also quite confusing. Um, it felt like my soul and my body were having a tug of war as to whether my soul
Wow.
was actually going to leave and go, if you believe in the up and down, uh, or it was going to go back to my body. Apparently, my body won.
Interesting. Well, your work isn't finished here yet. You're pulled
Yeah.
back here.
So I was brought back to interview you.
Yes, that was the. It's all leading up to here, like Satva. All roads led back to this interview.
Yeah.
Well, I find it infinitely fascinating. I haven't had anything remotely like that. I've had some. I think we all have some stuff that is wild. That and as I was saying, to bring it full circle, I had a really wild, and it's always in that twilight stage where I was most likely asleep, but you're wearing the same clothing as you are, you're in the same room. And I remember I had my dog, and so I got up and I looked, and there were running shoes. It was like there was a person in my room. And I looked at, and I didn't recognize them, and it was a man. It wasn't foreboding, but he was looking at me, and I was looking at him, and I was, couldn't scream. And anyway, the next morning I woke up and I thought, well, that was wild. Looking under where I saw this, and they were very distinct signature running shoes. And that's the day I found out that Norm MacDonald had passed away, and that's who I saw. So I find I've never told this story on any podcast, but I've always laughed at it because Norm notoriously did not care for female comedians. I had no ties to him in the real world, and but I was a little freaked out watching it, and I remembered all the everything I watched back of him. He had those same sneakers or running shoes on, because they're the same ones my dad wore. My dad had a bit of a Norm MacDonald looking vibe, but I thought, well, that was interesting, and I would be an odd person for him to visit. Some rando stranger who's a chick. But that always stayed with me. I mean, we've all had, something's been moved or something you can't explain. And I like that, because I like to think, I just think life would be so boring if there wasn't magic. Or I've always believed in aliens, and I think definitely there's an afterlife. I mean, it can't just be us. Really, it's just all hoodies and Uggs. My gosh. So I hope, again, there's that hope. I hope it's infinitely more fascinating.
Did you ever have a moment that really jolted you in your career? You thought something was going forward and forward and forward, and then all of a sudden you were 3 steps back?
Oh, I think that happens weekly. Weekly in LA, where you're right at the brink and it falls through, or you're right. I came very close to being on The Daily Show. And I've had a lot of near misses, or a lot of things. I had a schedule plan, a special rather, and then that was we were filming that in May of 2020, so that didn't happen. And so a lot of times it's been close, and then a lot of times I've been right place, right time, and something fabulous comes of it, like a play I did for free became a movie called Murder Anyone, and I won a bunch of awards for it. So it happens both sides. But yeah, I'm jolted. I think in Los Angeles I'm jolted on a daily basis, so that feels like it's part of it. And like I said, sometimes you're just really lucky, and you get shot into the stratosphere, and then there's a lot of gaslighting. It's just, so that's why you just have to love what you're doing and do for that sake.
So is this 2020 movie going to get reborn, or is that just gone now?
Oh, the special, the comedy special? Yes, allegedly. Allegedly, we should be doing that this year. So not with the same people, because they're out of the mix now, but yes. So I don't know. It's just it's almost been like an ongoing joke. Yeah, the movie's
Mhm.
already out there. That worked. But so yeah, hopefully I will do the comedy special. And you just have to believe in divine timing. I like the
Mhm.
stuff I'm doing better now. So maybe I'm hoping it all happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I think
Get
along
more
with hope,
comfortable.
yeah, absolutely. Along with hope, you have to have trust
Mhm.
and kind of and a big thing that I'm is the non-attachment, just going with the flow. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen, and you can't get too like, I mean, if you're being the queen of trying too hard or you're latching onto something, when you hold something in your hands, it's gonna squeeze away. So that's more what I try to practice now.
Mhm. So on the website I shouldn't have looked at before we talked, it mentioned something with David Steinberg, who's one of my
That was,
all-time favorites.
yes, that was the special. So
Okay.
yeah.
How did you come to connect with him? He's a Winnipeg boy, so
He is.
I'm a Winnipeg boy.
Yes. Through David Devona, who is the other producer that I've worked with, David and David and David's wife Robin. I think we were doing some projects together. So David Steinberg came to see me at the Comedy Store.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
So and again, this is just general reading I've done, but my understanding is he was the Norm Macdonald before Norm Macdonald. He
Yes, I
got the
think so.
Smothers Brothers.
Yes. Well, he did some really gosh. Yes, the Smothers Brothers, I think he was doing some stuff that was way ahead of its time.
Mhm.
Yeah. There are just some masters in the game who as I said, are just genius before the rest of the population catches up
Mhm.
and take chances. Big on that. They take huge risks and chances and bring us something magical.
Mhm. Do you have any current, I guess, what's a better way to ask this? Um, a Mount Rushmore of comedians?
Oh yeah, everybody. It's really hard to answer because there's so many comedians I really like for different reasons.
Mhm.
So I get asked that a lot, and I often struggle to answer it because I think it's a moving it's a moving
Mhm.
target. It's fluid for me. Like because I get into it's just like binging Netflix shows. All of a sudden, I'll be into someone more than someone else. I mean, you can't go wrong with the greats like Richard Pryor. I think
Sure.
George Carlin is a big influence. Due to Robin Williams
Mhm.
is someone. I mean, these are the greats. I know he's canceled. Louis C.K. was a big influence.
Yeah. I think he's
Um,
coming back.
he is. He is. I mean, I'm over the cancel thing. I'm just like, as soon as they cancel Pepe Le Pew, a cartoon skunk, and I'm French, and I'm like, that's the only French representation in the Looney Tunes universe. We didn't think that the cat was struggling, wiggling to get out of his arms because he was being inappropriate.
Mhm.
That's because he smelled like bad pot. He's a skunk. So Wanda Sykes is a big
Mhm.
one, and then there's a bunch of young ones that I'm absolutely loving. Like I really been liking Adam Ray. I mean, there's a few on Kill
Mhm.
Tony who I just think are
Oh my God, that's
hysterical.
a savage show.
It's savage. Oh my! I know. I want to go on there as my. I was like, maybe I could go on as my, character souffle because I feel like I don't think I have the same sensibilities they do. And of course it's a counterculture response to
Mhm.
cancel culture. So you've got the whole Joe Rogan universe with the mothership and this big, I mean, Mike Austin looks great right now. It's become a comedy
Mhm.
mecca. And but there are a few of the regulars on there that I do enjoy, and they are
Mhm.
brutal and
Mhm.
um
I don't know
sometimes
if you
too.
saw if you've seen any of Joe's special who just came out. And
I have a date this week to see Joe's special.
okay,
Uh, I
it
li- I
starts
li-
off pretty savage.
oh yeah, I mean, he started the whole thing. It's the Joe Rogan experience that
Mhm.
gave birth to Kill Tony, that whole gang. But
Mhm.
there's a lot to enjoy there, and there's, I mean, again, There are some younger comedians. As someone who likes everything from Oscar Wilde to the Three Stooges, that's sort of how my comedy goes as well. I just don't like cheap or things that I've seen a million times. I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear women do uber I also have the sensibility of a 14-year-old boy. I don't want to hear about feminine protection or jokes about fat jokes or anything like that I feel have been done to death. Just same with guys. I don't want to hear about your horrible that you've pooped your pants. Like sometimes there'll be 4 comedians who do the same thing. And so I really love original, speaking of Kill Tony, like Casey Rocket just cracks me up because I think brilliant and different. So I tend to gravitate towards, I like the intellects. I have a whole bit on me being a sapiosexual, that I'm attracted to intelligent people. Like my favorite 3-way would be, Spock, Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, even though they would not be into me, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just here for the intellect. When you have a Patton Oswalt, so brilliant, then you can have the ranting of Bill Burr that can crack me up. Harlan Williams is another Canadian treasure who is making he seems to be having a moment, and he's just so genius. So I think I like, and I'm hoping my comedy is like that. I really like a quirky silliness to the comedy, but there's still a message, and it makes you think, but still is making you. I mean, that's the whole point of comedy. I don't need it to be.
Okay, so we were talking about your Mount Rushmore, and again, I apologize for the bad break in the podcast. And you were telling us about some of the current comedians that you're finding just so amazing, and that you need a little quirky and silly in the comedy, which I find I like too.
Yeah, I do. I like a little quirky and silly with my comedy. Yes.
Which could explain the Three Stooges.
Also, because I also think, right now for myself, maybe that's what I embrace on stage. I think we have enough angry comedians. I don't know we need any more of those. And yeah, I like to be tickled. I do. I like a smart goof. It's probably what I go for most. And when you see someone enjoying themselves so much, then you're going to enjoy yourself as well too.
Yeah, I've seen there's a lot of, especially in stand-up, the heckler cuts, where the comedians just go after somebody in the audience, and I understand sometimes people are disruptive, but I think when you make that your entire act, it's a little bit of a turnoff to me.
Well, I don't mind crowd play. Matt Rife's got a whole career on that. I do. I enjoy crowd play because a lot of times the crowd loves that. There's sometimes when I'll just do that because that's what they want. Yeah. They'll want to play. But yeah, I've said this, I don't know, for a long time, that you should be uplifted after a comedy show. At least that's what I feel. So when someone's just being mean to the front row for the sake of it, I think it's cheap and it's low-hanging fruit. And I don't think anybody should leave a comedy show and need a rape kit. Like, you shouldn't have spent all that money, got a babysitter, parked, gotten all this stuff, want to leave your problems behind, and then have some comedian eviscerate you. I've never really understood that. So that's not my idea of a good time. And, I think it's tricky even with the roasts. I enjoy a good roast, but after a while, I just feel like, oh, why are we still doing this? It feels medieval. There is a part to it, like watching the Tom Brady roast after a while, where I just think the jokes are going to be repetitive. And I know there's a big resurgence for it because they think, okay, we can do these again. But I'm really on both sides of the fence on that. Sometimes I can appreciate it. I love, the old school ones, but I've never been a big fan of mean and being a viper. There's a lot. I love Tony Hinchcliffe, but sometimes it's like, yikes. Oof. it just feels very Hunger Games.
So are you
but
talking about like the old Dean Martin roasts?
yeah, those were fun. I mean, I haven't seen ones. They remind me of my childhood, and those were playful and masterfully done. And some of the current roasts are amazing. I guess it's just, for me, it's just a fine tipping point where, as I said, the jokes kind of, they're all, they're all going for the same jugular or same Achilles heel. And again, it's an art in and of itself, but there sometimes when I'm watching it, I feel like, yeah,
I felt that with the Brady roast as well.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to match the times. I felt there was something antediluvian about it at the same time, where I thought, okay, it seems archaic that we're still doing this. But
yeah, you mentioned Matt Rife, who I think is hilarious, and his crowd work is amazing. And
yes,
Andrew Schultz is also in that vein, if you've seen him.
Yeah, I've been, I don't like Andrew's podcasting, but I think I've watched a few of his moments, especially with the international crowds, and yes, he's
the stuff he gets away with. Wow.
Because again, I mean, listen, the whole thing about getting away with is you have to be smart about it. You have to be knowledgeable. If you know the difference and you're going to make a Kazakhstan joke, it's because you're informed. And it's all, see, I think sometimes what comedy forgets is it's not just getting away with it. Is it funny? You can say anything if it's funny. Just make damn sure it's funny if you're crossing lines. I'm all about crossing lines. I don't think any subject should be taboo. And I love dark humor. I adore it. I think it shines a light and takes a fear. Again, I don't think I think it's ridiculous, the whole cancel culture. Make jokes about anything. You don't have to listen to them. And I think they should be, I think everything is inbounds right now. I mean, it's incredible how I've had somebody came after me on Facebook about, one of my Vision Pop boards, and said, this is cultural appropriation. I'm like, no, actually, I do have that ancestry, and I'm always very lovely. And of course, I said, thank you very much. But I'm like, good God. Because the thing is, someone will find something to be offended by. So you can't play that game where you walk on eggshells. It's a losing battle. As someone said, if you want to be good, you cannot be liked by everyone.
And what is cultural appropriation anyway? I mean, people have been traveling the world and swapping things for thousands and thousands of years.
Well, I said, look, in my art, makes it sound a lot more fancy than it is. I use symbolism from all over the world. I see it as unifying in a very divisive world. I understand there's some blatant appropriation that, I'm not going to rock cornrows or something at this point, but I mean, you can try to be sensitive, but that I just thought was redonkulous, and in a very kind way said so. And also, I do have some of that blood, so that shut that down really quickly. You don't know what someone's background is. A lot of us are mutts. We've got a whole bunch of, but yeah. So again, I think it's whether you choose to see something as an homage or as stealing. And again, you can just try to be as kind and as empathetic and understanding as possible, and it's weird what jokes people will decide. It's never the ones you think they're going to be upset by. It's not the blatant where I'm like, yikes, this one will be right on the line. Nothing. It's something where, what do you mean you don't like Ross? Or say, it's just always, it's a losing game. It's a losing game. So
I can't see myself rocking cornrows.
Well, you never know. Yeah, probably not. So I think also it's important to be like, I'm always all ears. I will absolutely listen to someone's point of view and hopefully learn from it as well and understand where they're coming from. That's like, we all need to do that more too. We know where we stand. So.
And I think people have also just gotten to the place where we forget some people are just crazy. Like there's a certain percentage of the world where people will have these opinions and they're just crazy. And there's no substance to what they're saying, but they're going to try and impose their version of reality or crazy on you. And you just don't have to accept it. You can walk away.
Exactly. Well, we all have our different views on reality. And I love my brother again. He's getting a lot of, probably because he's getting a lot of quotes here, but he always said, why are you bothering? That's like talking to a chicken. And I always think that. And I think when someone's saying something and I'm like, oh, there's no way we're going to have a discourse here. I'm not going to talk to a chicken and just wander off. And also like listen, days are precious. You've also got to decide how much energy am I going to put towards this? And, I have at it, Haas. You be you, and I'll do me, and then we'll hopefully just share this
Do
off.
you have a merch store?
A merch store?
Yeah.
Well,
Sell merchandise?
The best place for if you want to take a look at the Vision Pop boards or do a Chuckle and Chill is I just send everyone to my Instagram, because Insta is at Carla Collins Comedian. All C words, but the good kind, at Carla Collins Comedian. And I do have a website, carlacollins.com, but it's better just to get a hold of me on Instagram or email carla@carlacollins.com. So again, I'm easy to find.
I'm not going to talk to the chicken would be like an amazing t-shirt.
I know. I've got, yeah, I'm working on that. I used to have I need a whole other round of t-shirts because he used to have a bunch of t-shirts with different sayings on it, but yeah. And then, then I'll have like a whole pushback from the chicken community saying, we're wonderful conversationalists. What do you mean you don't want to talk to us?
Yeah, what's the American chicken chain? Chick-fil-A? They'd be very upset.
Well, I don't mind about upsetting Chick-fil-A. So I'm happy to offend those guys.
Are you vegetarian or vegan or anything?
I was vegan for a long time. I am currently not. I'm more of a pescatarian. Pescatarian always sounds like it's a religion. Yeah, I mean, I was vegan. I was hardcore vegan for a few years. I've been vegetarian and right now, yeah, I'm freestyling currently.
I find a lot of people do that because it's like most things in life. You try different things to see what works for you. And we often go to an extreme when we try things. And then we have to dial it back and find, what ultimately allows us to function.
Just got to listen to your body, what's right for you. And it can be different things at different stages. So, but yeah. And again, that was born out of my love for animals. So, yeah, I think that everybody's so different that there's just not a one size fits all, but whether it comes to diet or philosophy or working out. I do the intermittent fasting. I think that has a lot of benefits because, and again, I always like to go old school. Like, what were the OGs doing? And obviously back in the cave men and women days, you weren't eating. And I just try to eat clean. Like, I do a lot for health. I mean, I take a lot of supplements. I always joke that it looks like a highlighter has exploded in the toilet. Like, I mean, I'll just light that thing up like a Vegas strip. So
I remember you wrote that in the package you sent me.
I do. I like to keep as natural as possible. I think, so that's just me personally being on a bunch of meds or chemicals or pharma that I think probably we were given our whole toolbox here. So if So that's the same with eating. I don't eat fast food or processed stuff. And that's, again, not judging anybody who does. Unfortunately, I do not have a sweet tooth. I like really hot and spicy and savory. I mean, I would have a salt lick in the corner, just me and a deer over there, just going at it. That's not a big temptation for me. So I'm kind of lucky that way. So
You should go on that show, Hot Ones, I think it's called.
what's it called?
Hot
Oh,
Ones?
hot ones. Yeah. Oh, I would kill hot ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I terrify my friends. I can eat a ghost pepper and they're just like, do you have any internal organs? I'm like, I don't know. Yes, I would really kill hot ones.
That would
Need
be
to do-
amazing. I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw Conan was on there.
I sure did. I love Conan.
Chugging this sauce. It's a direct route to the emergency ward.
I know. Yeah, and it's good for you. It's great for your metabolism. I love the spice. So
how did you come to intermittent fasting? Do you have like a fasting guru or something?
I don't have a fasting guru. I have a friend who, well, that's two separate things. I do have a friend and he's done training and he's older and knows a great deal about all of the natural, like supplements, and I take sulfur in the morning.
Never heard that one before.
Well, we don't have any sulfur in the ground anymore because of all of the the industrialized farming. So there's a lot of stuff in the US and Canada that we don't have, that maybe France would not have a problem with because they're not, it's not GMO in the food.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the joke. I've actually got all my friends on it because, as you can see, my hair is ridiculous, and that's I think a great deal to do with sulfur.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that first, in first thing, and intermittent fasting. I don't know. I heard it from a few people. Did some research, and I also, again, it just was very easy. I don't have an appetite in the mornings. Mm-hmm. So it was something that also, and I'm doing it for it seemed to have some great anti-aging benefits.
Mm-hmm. Well, you look 29. So...
What's that?
You look 29, so it's obviously working.
Namaste, charming. Thank you. So yeah, and again, I don't know that it's for everyone. So, but for me, I found it really works that I haven't done anything extreme. I haven't done anything for days on end, which I wouldn't mind doing, because I tend to, sometimes my weight's been a little bit lower for this year. I also hold my stress, like, you're either a stress eater or a stress non-eater, and I'm a stress non-eater. So if it's stressful, I'm mindful of that. But I think it really works again, because I think that's how we were back in the day, because you'd go out and you'd hunt, and you'd have feast or famine,
mm-hmm.
Or go the expression. So I like it for that. And because I also don't find it very difficult to do. And it seems to really have worked. Like, it's, if it pluses me, I'll stay with it. And I'm always trying, like, the latest, do this. If someone told me to, to clip off the crispy chest hairs of a wise elderly Greek man and put it in a blender with the sperm of a centaur, I'd be like, okay, is that going to make me look at, like, I'm up for trying stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've done that, and I work out a lot, and working out just keeps me out of prison.
Sure.
It's
I understand
mentally as much as physically for me. So
one of the most important lessons I've learned from intermittent fasting is that we're all an experimental, as you alluded to before. I'm not going to get the same results from the same intermittent fasting protocols that you're doing. You just have to find your own way.
Yes,
always something that works for you.
That's yeah. I think it's always important with everyone, and people want to be. There's different sizes. There's different. We're all. I used to say, we're like snowflakes, but now that has a negative connotation. But in that, we're all unique, and we all have different bodies and mindsets that react differently. So there isn't I mean, if people ask me things, I can tell them what works for me. And I can say without any hesitation, just find something you love doing. That, yeah, working out. You don't have to do what I'm doing, but you've got to find something that you love so that you're moving your body. I mean, I always say my favorite three-way, it's the mind, body, soul. If you're doing something to nurture those, that triangle every day, you're way ahead of the game. So whether for you that's doing a crossword first thing in the morning to get your mind going, or jumping on Duolingo to learn a bit of Spanish, if you're doing something to nurture your soul, which could just be hanging in nature, being with an animal, meditating, doing yoga, and then body, and I do something. I mean, I was a dancer for years, and I was like cardio queen, and now I do a lot of body pump. I'm doing weights, and that just works better for me at this point, is doing weights and Pilates. So, and it's always important to change it up. That's the whole fun of life. You can do something for a while and move it.
Change and your body adapts, right? So that's your body telling you, try something else.
Yeah, I've plateaued. Mix it up, baby.
And that can be mentally or spiritually, emotionally. We just got to keep.
Well, they're all connected, right? I think the simple fact is we're all connected. It's the whole Neville Goddard. The world we're seeing is just ourselves pushed out. And when it comes to all of our astral, etheric, physical, and our bodies is all connected, right? I mean, I think Joe Dispenza and everybody talks about the whole heart coherence, and maybe trying to, humans live, we're always in our minds. Again, with our to-do list and thoughts and demons and whatever. So I always just like to, when I'm doing the meditation, I always just say, close your eyes and just picture an escalator going down. If you let it go down to just below, right around your sacral chakra, it kind of calms you down. And so now I'm trying to be, I don't exactly know what it means to live from your heart entirely, but I'm all for it. Rather make this. So even if you're just placing your hand over your heart, or you're picturing your heart chakra and picturing an emerald green, or, it's just wherever you're putting your attention is where all your energy is going. So, I mean, I tell people, I used to be just a ghoul. I was just I loved true crime podcasts. I used to joke that I'd let Keith Morrison do unspeakable things to me, Dateline, and I don't watch any of that. And I'm like, this can't be good for my subconscious. I mean, I joked that I don't know if I would give a good TED talk, but I would really rock a Ted Bundy talk. And then at some point I just said, I think I'm going to take a little back off from all the serial killer crap I'm watching. And so, yeah. So again, you have to make up your own decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I watch Ripley. I'm not an animal.
I've just started writing a fictional serial killer book.
There you go. Well,
the research is fun. I got to speak to an FBI agent. I spoke to an Interpol agent. I've spoken to homicide detectives. I've spoken to a CSI. So that part of it is fun.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, again, delicious topic. Those are the hottest podcasts. It's wonderful. And I mean, you're filling your soul because you're doing something creative. So it is part of your research. Cool.
When I was younger, I always thought I should have been a talk show host. I should have been the next David Letterman or something like that. So I guess podcast is the closest I'm going to come to that.
Wow, that's what people are watching podcasts way more than late night now. So you're on the right trend.
Well, Carla, I so much appreciate you coming on. And I know it's not easy for somebody in the comedy world to get up so early in the morning. You're on LA time, I'm on Toronto time. So much love, much appreciation. And do you have anything you'd like to close off with? Any extra words of hope?
I namaste laughing. I think that's that's always what I try to leave everybody with. And yeah, we listen again, it's crazy times when we're when it seems like rapturish, the biggest change in you know, I think it's frustrating because you can only change yourself, and that's what changes the world. So, you know, you want to be gentle with yourself, and then the stuff that we can't control, that's where laughter comes in.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to
Thank
everybody
you.
who's tuned in. Very welcome. I've had a blast talking to you. I really have.
Oh,
To
me
everybody,
much. You're a love.
everybody who's tuned in, thank you for tuning in to the Dead Man Walking podcast, and have a great week.